I was pumping gas at a rest stop outside Flagstaff, Arizona, when I saw a dead man. My Uncle Greg. He drowned 8 years ago in a boating accident, but there he was, 30 feet away, very much alive, filling up a pickup truck. My name is Nathaniel Hayes. I'm 26 years old, and last month I discovered my uncle faked his own death for life insurance money. My aunt collected $800,000. The funeral was real, the grief was real, but Greg wasn't dead, he was just hiding. And when I accidentally found him, I uncovered a family conspiracy that had been running for nearly a decade. Everyone knew. My aunt, my cousins, even my own father. They'd all been lying to me my entire adult life. Before we get into this, hit that like button, subscribe to Reddit Family Fallout, and turn on notifications. Trust me, you need to hear how deep this goes. Let's begin. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, in a close family. My dad, Benjamin Hayes, had one younger brother, Greg. Uncle Greg was the fun one, the wild card, always starting businesses that failed, always chasing the next big thing. He married my Aunt Denise when I was 10, and they had 2 kids, my cousins, Connor and Riley. Greg was never financially stable. He filed for bankruptcy twice, had multiple failed startups, and borrowed money from everyone in the family. Dad bailed him out constantly. By the time I was in high school, Greg owed our family over $100,000. Then came the boating accident. I was 18, fresh out of high school when we got the call. Greg had gone fishing alone on the Columbia River. His boat was found capsized. No body. The Coast Guard searched for 3 days before calling it off. They ruled it an accidental drowning, presumed dead. The funeral was devastating. Denise sobbed through the whole service. Connor and Riley, who were 14 and 12 at the time, looked destroyed. Dad gave the eulogy, barely holding it together as he talked about his little brother who'd always dreamed bigger than his bank account. We buried an empty casket. 6 months later, Denise collected on Greg's life insurance policy, $800,000. It was the first financially stable moment of her life. She paid off the mortgage, put money aside for the kids' college, and started living comfortably for the first time in years. Everyone said Greg had done one good thing by getting that policy, that at least his family was taken care of. I believed that for 8 years. Last month, I took a road trip from Portland to New Mexico to visit a college friend. I was driving through Arizona, middle of nowhere, and stopped at a tiny gas station off Highway 40, just outside Flagstaff. I was filling my tank when I noticed a guy at the pump across from me. Mid-50s, beard, baseball cap, sunglasses. Something about him made me look twice. He glanced up, and our eyes met for a split second. Then he quickly looked away and finished pumping his gas. My heart started racing. I knew that face, the shape of his jaw, the way he stood, the slight hunch of his shoulders. Uncle Greg. But that was impossible. Greg was dead. I'd been to his funeral. I'd watched my aunt cry over his casket. The man got into his truck, a beat-up Ford F-150 with Arizona plates, and started to drive away. Without thinking, I jumped in my car and followed him. He drove for about 5 miles before pulling into a trailer park. Small place, maybe 20 mobile homes scattered across a dusty lot. He parked in front of a faded blue single-wide and got out. I pulled in behind him and got out of my car. "Uncle Greg?" He froze, then slowly turned around, and I saw his face fully for the first time in 8 years. It was him, no question. "You've got the wrong person," he said, but his voice was shaking. "Uncle Greg, it's me, Nathaniel, Ben's son." All the color drained from his face. "Nate? Jesus Christ, what are you doing here?" What are you doing here? You're supposed to be dead." He looked around nervously, like he was checking if anyone was watching. "Get inside, now." I followed him into the trailer. It was small, cluttered, smelled like cigarettes and instant coffee. He closed the blinds and turned to face me. "How did you find me?" "I didn't. I was just stopping for gas. Greg, what the hell is going on? Everyone thinks you're dead." He sank onto his couch, head in his hands. "You can't tell anyone you saw me." "Are you kidding? Greg, there was a funeral. Denise collected life insurance. This is fraud." "I know what it is," he snapped. "But if you turn me in, you destroy the whole family. Not just me, Denise, the kids, your dad." "My dad? What does Dad have to do with this?" Greg looked up at me, and I saw guilt written all over his face. "Your dad helped me do it." I felt like the ground had dropped out from under me.
What did you just say?
Ben helped me fake my death. He was the one who came up with the plan.
That's not possible. Dad gave your eulogy. He cried.
Because he felt guilty, because he knew what we'd done. Greg stood up and grabbed a beer from his fridge. "You want the whole story? Sit down." I sat, numb. 8 years ago, I was drowning. Not literally, financially.
I owed everyone money. Denise was threatening to leave me. The kids needed braces, college funds, a future I couldn't give them. I had an $800,000 life insurance policy I'd taken out years earlier, back when I was trying to get a business loan and the bank required it. So you decided to fake your death and commit insurance fraud? I decided to give my family a future. I went to Ben, told him I was thinking about it, expected him to talk me out of it. Instead, he helped me plan it. Why would he do that? Because he was tired of bailing me out. Because he knew Denise and the kids deserved better. Because he thought if I just disappeared, maybe everyone could finally move on and be okay. This is insane. Greg took a long drink. We planned it for months. Ben helped me establish a new identity, got me a fake ID, social security number, the works. He knew people who knew people. Then we staged the boating accident. I left my boat in the middle of the river, let it capsize, and drove to Arizona. Ben covered for me, made sure everyone believed I'd drowned. And Denise, she just went along with this? Denise knew from the beginning. It was her idea to file the insurance claim quickly. She played the grieving widow perfectly. What about Connor and Riley? They didn't know at first, but Denise told them a few years ago. They were old enough to handle it, and we thought they deserved to know. My mind was reeling. So everyone in the family knows except me? You and a few cousins. We kept the circle small. The fewer people who knew, the safer it was. Safe? Greg, this is insurance fraud. If you get caught, everyone goes to prison. Which is why you can't tell anyone you saw me. He leaned forward. Nate, I know this is a lot, but that money gave Denise and the kids a life they never would have had. Connor's in college, Riley's starting next year. They have a house, stability, a future. Are you really going to take that away from them? You're asking me to be complicit in a crime. I'm asking you to protect your family. By lying? By letting this fraud continue? By understanding that sometimes the line between right and wrong isn't as clear as you think. I stood up. I need to talk to my dad. Nate, wait! But I was already out the door. I drove back to Portland in a blur, barely remembering the 15-hour trip. I went straight to my parents' house. It was late, almost midnight, but I pounded on the door until Dad answered. Nate, what are you doing here? I saw Greg in Arizona, alive. Dad's face went pale. Come inside. Mom was already asleep. Dad led me to his office and closed the door. How did you find him? Accidentally. I stopped for gas and there he was. Dad, what the hell did you do? Dad sank into his chair, suddenly looking old. I helped my brother fake his death so his family could survive. That's what I did. That's insurance fraud. I know what it is. You think I don't know? You think I haven't lived with this guilt for 8 years? Then why did you do it? Because Greg was going to kill himself, Dad shouted. Then quieter. He came to me one night, told me he couldn't take it anymore. The debt, the failure, the feeling of dragging everyone down. He said he'd taken out life insurance years earlier, back when I was trying to get a business loan and the bank required it. So you decided to fake your death and commit insurance fraud. I decided to give my family a future. I went to Ben, told him I was thinking about it, expected him to talk me out of it. Instead, he helped me plan it. Why would he do that? Because he was tired of bailing me out, because he knew Denise and the kids deserved better, because he thought if I just disappeared, maybe everyone could finally move on and be okay. This is insane. But I left without answering. I spent the next week in a moral crisis. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Uncle Greg at that gas station, alive when he should be dead. I called my best friend, Jordan, told him everything. Holy shit, he said. That's actually insane. What do I do? I mean, legally, you're supposed to report insurance fraud, right? But it's my family. Your family that's been lying to you for 8 years? Nate, they let you cry at a fake funeral. They let you believe your uncle was dead. That's messed up. But if I report them, they all go to prison. Connor and Riley lose everything. Denise loses the house. My dad could go to jail. And if you don't report them, you're an accessory after the fact. You could go to jail too. I know. That's why I don't know what to do. Jordan was quiet for a moment. What does your gut tell you? My gut says my family is full of liars and criminals, and I don't know who to trust anymore. I decided I needed to talk to Denise. She lived an hour away in Vancouver, Washington. I showed up at her house unannounced on a Saturday morning. She opened the door, saw my face, and knew immediately. You found him. Can we talk? She let me in. Connor and Riley weren't home. They were both at school. We sat in her kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd eaten countless family dinners growing up. How? She asked. Random gas station in Arizona. Pure coincidence. She nodded slowly. Greg called me, said you'd shown up at his door.
Did he also tell you I'm trying to decide whether to report you all for insurance fraud? He mentioned that might be a possibility. She poured herself coffee with shaking hands. Are you going to report us? I don't know, Aunt Denise. Help me understand. How could you do this? How could you lie to everyone, collect that money, and just live normally? It wasn't normal at first. I had panic attacks for months. Every time the phone rang, I thought it was the police. But then months turned into years, and we got away with it. And the money, Nate, that money changed everything for us. It's blood money. It's survival money. Before Greg died, we were 2 months from foreclosure. Connor needed braces we couldn't afford. Riley needed classes. I was working 2 jobs, and we still couldn't make ends meet. That insurance money saved us. By committing fraud. By taking money from a massive insurance company that makes billions every year, Nate, it was a drop in the bucket for them. That doesn't make it legal. No, it doesn't, but it made it necessary. She looked at me with tired eyes. You think I'm proud of what we did? I'm not. I know it was wrong, but I'd do it again in a heartbeat to give my kids the life they have now. What about the life you gave me? A life based on lies? We were protecting you. Everyone keeps saying that, but all you did was make me mourn someone who wasn't dead. Would you have rather known? Would you have rather spent 8 years knowing your uncle was alive somewhere, knowing you had to keep that secret? Yes, at least I'd have a choice. And you might have chosen wrong. You might have reported us out of some moral principle and destroyed all of us. Maybe you deserve to be destroyed. Denise slammed her coffee cup down. You self-righteous little... She stopped herself, took a breath. You know what? You're right. We lied. We committed fraud. We're criminals. So go ahead, report us. Turn in your aunt, your uncle, your father, your cousins. Blow up your entire family over money that's already spent on things that improved people's lives. It's not about the money. It's about the principle. Principles don't pay for college, Nate. Principles don't put food on the table or keep the electricity on. You grew up comfortable because your dad had a good job. We didn't have that luxury. So yes, we made a desperate choice, and it worked, and we'd do it again. We sat in silence. Finally, I asked the question that had been bothering me most. Did you love him, Greg, or was your grief at the funeral just an act? Denise's eyes filled with tears. I loved him so much it hurt. Still do. That's why I agreed to this insanity in the first place, because I couldn't watch him die for real. This way, at least I know he's alive somewhere, even if I barely ever see him. Do you see him? Does he visit? Twice a year. He drives up, stays for a night, then disappears again. It's not enough. It'll never be enough, but it's better than a grave. Did Connor and Riley know when they found out? Connor was angry, like you. Riley was just relieved. She'd always felt like something was off about that day, like the story didn't make sense. Finding out the truth was almost a relief for her. Does Connor still talk to Greg? Video calls once a month. They're rebuilding their relationship. It's slow, but it's something. I left Denise's house more confused than before. Part of me understood their desperation. Part of me was furious at their lies. And part of me just felt sad for the whole mess. That night, I got a call from Connor. Hey, Nate, heard you found Dad. Yeah. How you holding up? Not great. Look, I know you're pissed. I was too when I found out. But nothing, Connor. Your family committed a serious crime. And that crime paid for my college education. I'm graduating debt-free because of what they did. That doesn't make it right. No, but it makes it complicated. Nate, I'm not asking you to approve. I'm just asking you not to destroy what's left of our family. Your family destroyed itself when it decided fraud was acceptable. Fine, report us then, Connor. Send my mom to prison, ruin my dad's new life, take away everything we've built. But ask yourself this first. What do you actually gain by doing that? Justice? For who? The insurance company that wouldn't even notice the money was gone? He hung up. I sat in my apartment, staring at my phone, knowing I had to make a choice soon. Report them or stay silent. Justice or family. Right or wrong. Nothing had ever felt less clear.
I spent the next few days researching insurance fraud laws. What I found made my stomach turn. Life insurance fraud is a felony. Everyone involved could face 10 to 20 years in prison. Denise could lose everything. The house, the cars, Connor and Riley's college funds. The insurance company could sue for triple damages, which would bankrupt the entire family. And if they found out I knew and didn't report it, I could be charged as an accessory after the fact. Prison time for me, too. I called a lawyer anonymously, pretending I was writing a novel and needed details for a character. Hypothetically, I said, if someone discovered a family member faked their death for insurance money years ago, what's their legal obligation? There's no legal requirement for a civilian to report a crime, the lawyer said. But if questioned by authorities and they lie, that's obstruction of justice. My advice? If this is more than hypothetical, your character should contact a criminal defense attorney immediately. So I had no legal obligation to report, but if the insurance company somehow found out and investigated, I'd have to tell the truth or commit perjury. The next weekend, Dad showed up in my apartment. We need to talk. We've talked enough. Nate, please, I need to explain something. I let him in. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past 2 weeks. I know you're struggling with this, he began. I know it seems like we're all terrible people who committed a terrible crime, and maybe we are, but I need you to understand why I helped Greg. You already told me. He was suicidal. That's part of it, but there's more. Dad sat down heavily. When we were kids, Greg saved my life, literally. I was 9, he was 7. I fell through ice on a frozen pond. Greg ran out, pulled me to shore, kept me warm until help came. Doctor said another 5 minutes, and I'd have died from hypothermia. I'd heard this story before, but never connected it to Greg's fake death. I've owed him my life since I was 9 years old, so when he came to me, desperate, talking about suicide, I couldn't let him die. I couldn't. He saved me once. I had to save him. By helping him commit fraud? By giving him a way out that kept him alive. Yes, it was illegal. Yes, it was wrong. But my brother is alive because of what we did, and his family has a future. Is that so terrible? Dad, you let me grieve. You let Mom grieve. She doesn't even know, does she? Dad's silence was answer enough. Oh my God, Mom doesn't know? I couldn't tell her. She would have stopped us, or worse, she would have known and had to live with that guilt. This way, she's innocent. If this ever comes out, she can honestly say she didn't know. So you've been lying to your wife for 8 years too? To protect her. Nate, if the authorities come knocking, your mother can't be charged with anything because she genuinely believed Greg died. I gave her that protection. That's not protection, that's a lie. It's both. Sometimes they're the same thing. We were shouting now. I forced myself to calm down. What about Uncle Mike? You said he knows. Mike figured it out about 5 years in. He noticed Denise making trips to Arizona, got suspicious, followed her, confronted us all. We explained everything, and he agreed to keep quiet. So there's this whole secret network of people keeping Greg's fake death alive. Yes, and it's worked for 8 years, until you stumbled on him. This isn't my fault. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying we have a situation now, and we need to figure out how to handle it. What does Greg want? Greg wants to come home. That stopped me cold. What? He's tired of hiding. He misses his family, his kids, his life. He wants to somehow make this right. You can't unfake a death. The minute he surfaces, it all unravels. I know. That's why I'm here. We're thinking about turning ourselves in. I stared at him. You're what? Me, Greg, and Denise, the 3 of us who actually planned this. We turn ourselves in, confess, take whatever punishment comes, but we try to protect Connor and Riley. They were kids when this happened. They shouldn't be punished for our choices. You'd go to prison? If it meant ending this lie, maybe. Your mother would be devastated, but at least it would be over. Greg could stop hiding. Denise could stop looking over her shoulder. They'd make you pay back the $800,000. Most of it's gone. Mortgage, college, living expenses. We'd probably have to sell the house, liquidate everything, but at least we'd have clear consciences. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. When did you decide this? After you found Greg. We've been talking all week. He's ready to face the consequences if it means he can see his kids again, be part of their lives for real. What about Denise? Denise is the holdout. She doesn't want to lose everything, but she's considering it. This is insane. I know, but it's where we're at. Dad looked at me. The question is, what are you going to do? Are you going to report us or give us time to turn ourselves in? If you're really going to turn yourselves in, why do you need my silence? Because if you report us, the authorities control the narrative. If we turn ourselves in, we have at least some say in how it goes. We can protect Connor and Riley, make sure they're not dragged into this. I need to think about this. Take all the time you need. But Nate, whatever you decide, I love you, and I'm sorry we put you in this position. After Dad left, I sat in the darkness of my apartment for hours. A week ago, my biggest problem was deciding what to do with my life. Now I was caught in the middle of a family conspiracy that could send everyone I loved to prison. And somehow, I had to decide what justice actually looked like.
3 days later, I got a call from Riley. Can we meet, just you and me?
We met at a coffee shop in Portland. Riley was 20 now, a junior in college studying engineering. She looked so much like Greg, it hurt. "I know this is weird," she started. "We haven't really talked since you found out." "It's been a weird few weeks." "Connor told me what you said to him, about how we destroyed the family." "Riley, I didn't mean—" "No, you're right, we did. Or at least Mom and Dad and Uncle Ben did. But Nate, I need you to understand what life was like before." She pulled out her phone and showed me photos. Their old house, small, run down, with peeling paint and a sagging porch. "We were poor, Nate, like really poor. I wore the same 3 outfits to school for 2 years because we couldn't afford clothes. Connor's shoes had holes in them. We ate ramen and canned soup most nights." "I didn't know it was that bad." "Because you grew up comfortable. Uncle Ben made good money. You never had to worry about whether the lights would stay on. We did, every single month." She showed me more photos. "This is me at 12, right before Dad died. See my teeth? They were crooked, overlapping. We couldn't afford braces. I got bullied constantly for it. Connor got jumped twice for his cheap shoes." Then she showed me recent photos. Her smiling with perfectly straight teeth, Connor at his college graduation, their new house, modest but nice, with fresh paint and a real lawn. "The insurance money changed everything. I got braces, Connor got through college debt-free, Mom doesn't have to work 3 jobs anymore. We have stability for the first time in our lives." "I get that, Riley, but it's still insurance fraud." "I know, and if I could go back and make them do it differently, I would, but I can't. All I can do is live with the choice they made and try to make something of the opportunity they gave me." "What about your dad? Do you talk to him?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Every week. Video calls. He asks about school, about my life, tells me he's proud of me. It's not enough. I want him at my graduation, at my wedding someday, but he can't come back without destroying everything." "He told Dad he wants to turn himself in." "I know. I think he should. I think they all should. The secret is killing everyone." "You'd be okay with your mom going to prison?" "No, but I'd be okay with the truth finally coming out. I'm tired of lying, Nate. I'm tired of pretending my dad is dead when I talked to him yesterday. I'm tired of living this double life." "Does Connor feel the same way?" "Connor's angrier. He thinks if Dad had just stuck around and filed for bankruptcy, they could have figured it out together. He resents that Dad chose to disappear instead of fight." "What do you think?" Riley was quiet for a long time. "I think Dad was drowning and saw one way out. I think he made a terrible choice for understandable reasons. I think Mom went along with it because she loved him and wanted to keep him alive. And I think Uncle Ben helped because he owed Dad his life." "That doesn't make it right." "No, but it makes it human." After Riley left, I felt even more conflicted. These weren't cartoon villains who'd committed fraud for greed. They were desperate people who'd made terrible choices trying to survive. But did that excuse what they'd done? That night, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I drove to Arizona. I showed up at Greg's trailer at 10 p.m. He answered the door looking exhausted. "Nate, what are you doing here?" "I need to understand, really understand. Let me in." He did. Greg's life in Arizona was depressing. The trailer was small and shabby. He worked construction under a fake name, making barely enough to live on. He had no friends, too risky to get close to anyone. He spent his evenings alone, watching TV, video calling his kids when he could. "This is what you gave up everything for?" "I gave up everything so my family could have a future. This," he gestured around, "this is just the price I pay." "Do you regret it?" "Every single day, but I'd do it again." "Dad said you want to turn yourself in." "I'm considering it. I'm 56 years old, Nate. I've spent 8 years in hiding. I've missed my kids growing up. I wasn't there when Connor graduated high school or when Riley got her driver's license. I've been dead to the world, and I'm tired of being a ghost." "If you turn yourself in, you go to prison." "Probably. 5 to 10 years, the lawyer says, with good behavior. But at least when I get out, I can see my family without hiding. I can go to Riley's wedding someday. I can be a grandfather if Connor has kids. I can actually live again." "What about Denise and Dad?" "Denise would probably get a lighter sentence, 3 to 5 years. Ben might avoid prison entirely since he didn't directly profit. Community service, probation, restitution." "You've really thought this through." "We've been talking about it for a week. The lawyer says if we turn ourselves in voluntarily, show remorse, agree to pay back what we can, the sentence could be lighter." "But you don't have $800,000 to pay back." "No, we'd have to liquidate everything. Sell the house, the cars, empty the college funds. Connor and Riley would have to take out student loans like everyone else, but at least the lie would end."
I looked at this man, my uncle, who I'd mourned, who'd been living in this depressing trailer for 8 years while his family lived off insurance money he helped them steal. Do you want forgiveness, Greg? Is that why you're telling me all this? No, I don't deserve forgiveness. I want you to understand that this wasn't some calculated scam. It was desperation turned into a terrible decision that spiraled into 8 years of consequences. Why didn't you just file for bankruptcy, get therapy, anything legal? I tried bankruptcy twice. Both times I bounced back worse than before. Therapy? Nate, I couldn't afford groceries. How was I supposed to afford therapy? The system doesn't help people like I was. It just lets you drown slowly. So you chose fraud? I chose to stay alive while giving my family a chance. Yes, through fraud. Yes, illegally. But I'm still here. I'm still breathing. And my kids got to go to college. Maybe that makes me a criminal. Maybe that makes me a coward. I don't know anymore. We talked for 3 more hours. Greg showed me photos he kept hidden, pictures of Connor and Riley that Denise sent him, screenshots of their video calls, report cards, graduation announcements. He'd been watching his kids grow up from a distance, unable to be part of their lives. The worst part, he said, is knowing that the best thing I ever did for my kids was pretend to die. What kind of father does that make me? I didn't have an answer. I drove back to Portland the next morning, no closer to a decision. Every conversation I had just made things more complicated.
A week later, everything changed. I got a call from Dad, his voice panicked. "Nate, we have a problem. The insurance company is investigating." My blood ran cold. What? Someone reported suspicious activity. An investigator called Denise yesterday, asking questions about Greg's death. They're reopening the case. Who reported it? We don't know. Could be anyone. A neighbor who saw something weird, someone who noticed discrepancies in the timeline. All it takes is one anonymous tip. What are you gonna do? The lawyer says we have 2 options. Come clean now, before they find evidence, or wait and see what they dig up. What did you decide? We're turning ourselves in. Tomorrow. We've hired a criminal defense attorney. We're going to confess, cooperate fully, and hope for leniency. Oh my God. I need you to do something for me. Talk to your mother. She's going to find out tomorrow, and I need you to be there for her. You still haven't told her? How could I? But now I have no choice. Nate, when this comes out, your mother is going to be devastated. She's going to need you. That night, I couldn't sleep. Tomorrow, my entire family would be exposed. Dad and Greg would be arrested. Denise would lose everything. Connor and Riley would watch their world collapse. And Mom would learn that her husband had been lying to her for 8 years. The next morning, I went to my parents' house early. Dad was in his office, on the phone with lawyers. Mom was in the kitchen making breakfast, completely unaware that her life was about to implode. "Nathaniel, what a nice surprise. Have you eaten?" "Mom, we need to talk. Where's Dad?" "In his office. He's been on the phone all morning. Something about work." Dad emerged, looking like a man heading to his own execution. "Margaret, can you sit down? Nate and I need to tell you something." The color drained from Mom's face. "What's wrong? Is someone sick?" "No one's sick, but there's something I should have told you 8 years ago." Dad took her hand. "Greg isn't dead." Mom laughed nervously. "What? Ben, that's not funny." "I'm not joking. Greg faked his death for the life insurance money. Denise knew. I helped. He's been living in Arizona for 8 years. The look on Mom's face would haunt me forever. Confusion, then disbelief, then horror as she realized Dad was serious. "You're lying. This is some kind of sick joke." "It's not a joke. Greg is alive. The boating accident was staged. The insurance claim was fraud. And today we're turning ourselves in to the authorities." Mom stood up so fast her chair fell over. "You knew? For 8 years you knew your brother was alive and you let me grieve? Let me cry at his funeral? Let me comfort Denise? I had to protect you. Protect me by lying to me for 8 years? By making me an unwitting accomplice to insurance fraud? You're not an accomplice. You didn't know. That's why I didn't tell you. How dare you make that choice for me?" Mom was screaming now. "How dare you decide what I could handle? I'm your wife, Ben. We're supposed to be partners." "I was trying to keep you out of it." "Well, you failed, because now I'm in it. When this comes out, everyone will think I knew. They'll think I was lying, too." Dad tried to approach her, but she backed away. "Don't touch me. I can't even look at you right now." She turned to me. "Did you know?" "I found out a few weeks ago. Accidentally ran into Greg at a gas station." "And you didn't tell me either?" "I didn't know what to do. Dad asked me to keep quiet while they figured out how to handle it." "So both of you lied to me? My husband and my son?" She grabbed her purse. "I need to leave."
Margaret, wait. No, I'm going to my sister's. Don't call me. Don't come after me. I need to think. She left, and the house fell silent. Dad sank into a chair, head in his hands. She hates me. She's in shock. Give her time. I just destroyed my marriage, along with everything else. 3 hours later, Dad, Greg, and Denise met with federal investigators and their attorney. They confessed to everything: the staged accident, the fake identity, the insurance fraud. The investigators recorded every word. By evening, they were all arrested. Dad and Greg were taken to federal holding. Denise was allowed to stay home on bond, since Connor and Riley were still minors in the system's eyes and needed supervision. The story hit the news that night. Local family fakes death for insurance money. The media had a field day. Our name, our photos, everything was public. My phone exploded with calls from friends, coworkers, reporters. I turned it off and stayed in my apartment, watching my family's life disintegrate on television. Connor called me from a blocked number. "Have you seen the news?" "Yeah. People are showing up at our house. Reporters, curiosity seekers, people screaming that we should go to prison. Mom's hiding inside. Riley's at my apartment. This is a nightmare." "I'm sorry." "Are you? Because this is what you wanted, right? Justice?" "I didn't report them, Connor. Someone else did." "Doesn't matter. You found Dad. You stirred everything up. If you just kept your mouth shut." "Don't put this on me. Your family committed fraud. This was always going to come out eventually." "Easy for you to say. Your mom still has a house. Your college was paid for legitimately. You're not the one about to lose everything." He hung up. I sat in my apartment feeling like the world's biggest hypocrite. I'd spent weeks agonizing over whether to report them, leaning towards staying silent to protect the family. And then someone else had reported them anyway, and now I was caught in the fallout, despite never making the choice. The next day, I went to visit Dad at the detention center. He looked 10 years older, wearing an orange jumpsuit, his face haggard. "How's your mother?" "Still at Aunt Carol's. She won't talk to me either." "I've destroyed everything. The marriage, the family, our reputation, all for nothing." "Not for nothing. Greg is alive. Connor and Riley had opportunities they wouldn't have had otherwise." "At what cost? Your mother hates me. The entire city knows what we did. Connor and Riley are being harassed online. Was it worth it?" "I don't know, Dad. Was it?" He looked at me with empty eyes. "Ask me in 20 years, if I'm out of prison by then."
The legal proceedings moved fast. Dad, Greg, and Denise all pled guilty to insurance fraud conspiracy. The prosecutor pushed for maximum sentences, 20 years each, to make an example of them. The defense argued for leniency. Greg's lawyer presented evidence of his mental health struggles, his financial desperation, the fact that he'd been living in poverty for 8 years rather than enjoying the money. Dad's lawyer emphasized that he'd helped his brother to prevent a suicide and hadn't personally benefited financially. Denise's lawyer painted her as a desperate mother trying to save her family. None of it mattered much. The judge was unsympathetic. Greg got 15 years, Dad got 8 years, Denise got 5 years. Connor and Riley were investigated but not charged, since they'd been minors when the fraud occurred and hadn't directly participated in the scheme. Uncle Mike, who'd known for years, got 2 years for being an accessory after the fact. The insurance company sued for triple damages, $2.4 million. Denise had to sell the house, the cars, everything. Connor and Riley's college funds were seized. They were left with nothing. Mom filed for divorce. She couldn't forgive Dad for lying to her for 8 years, for making her an unwitting part of a criminal conspiracy, for destroying the life they'd built together. The whole family fractured. Some relatives sided with Dad and Greg, saying they'd done what they had to do. Others cut them off completely, ashamed of the association. Family gatherings stopped. Holidays were canceled. The Hayes family, as I knew it, simply ceased to exist. I tried to stay neutral, to maintain relationships with everyone, but it was impossible. Mom saw any contact with Dad as betrayal. Connor blamed me for starting this by finding Greg, even though I'd never reported them. Riley understood better, but was too overwhelmed with her own situation to talk much. I fell into depression. I'd gone from having a large, close family to having essentially no one. The weight of knowing, of having been forced to carry this secret, even briefly, crushed me. I started therapy. My therapist, Dr. Rashid, helped me process the guilt. "You didn't cause this," he kept saying. "Your family's choices caused this. You were just the catalyst for the truth coming out." But if I'd never stopped at that gas station, then someone else would have found out eventually. Insurance fraud this extensive doesn't stay hidden forever. Anonymous tips, database checks, suspicious patterns, something would have triggered an investigation eventually. So what was the point of all my agonizing, whether to report them or not? The point was you struggling with your own morals, deciding what kind of person you want to be. That struggle was real and valid, even if events overtook your decision. 6 months into their sentences, I went to visit Greg at the federal prison in California where he'd been transferred. He looked surprisingly at peace. "How are you holding up?" I asked through the glass partition. "Better than I expected. I'm sober, been sober the whole time I was in Arizona, but this makes it permanent. I'm in therapy, I'm taking classes, and I don't have to lie anymore." "Was it worth it?" "The fraud? No. Prison? Weirdly, yes. I needed to face consequences for what I did, and now that I am, I feel lighter. The guilt was worse than the prison. Connor and Riley lost everything because of the restitution." His face fell. "I know, that's the part I can't forgive myself for. I tried to give them a future and ended up taking it away. Connor's drowning in student loans now. Riley had to drop out and work full-time. Riley went back part-time. She's determined to finish. That's my girl." He smiled sadly. "Do they visit?" "Riley does. Connor won't. I don't blame him. He has every right to hate me." We talked for another hour. Despite everything, Greg seemed more like himself than he had in years. The lying had been eating him alive, and prison had paradoxically freed him. Dad was different. I visited him at a minimum security facility in Oregon, and he looked broken. "Your mother's divorce papers came through. 32 years of marriage, gone. I'm sorry." "Don't be. She deserves better than a husband who lied to her for 8 years. I wish I'd told her from the beginning. She might have been angry, but we could have worked through it. Instead, I made the choice for her, and I lost her anyway." "She might forgive you eventually." "No, she won't, and she shouldn't. I betrayed her trust in the worst way possible. You promise me something. When you find someone you want to marry, don't lie to them, no matter how good your reasons seem. Lies destroy everything." "I promise." "How are you doing, really?" "Honestly, not great. I lost my whole family. Every holiday, every gathering, every normal thing we used to do, it's all gone. I'm sorry. This isn't the legacy I wanted to leave you." "What did you think would happen? Did you really believe you'd get away with this forever?" "I didn't think about forever. I just thought about saving my brother's life one day at a time, and then days turned into years, and we were too deep to turn back." After leaving Dad, I drove to Vancouver to check on Denise. She'd been released to a halfway house and was working 2 jobs to pay off the restitution. She looked exhausted, but determined. "How are the kids?" she asked immediately. "Surviving. Riley's tough. Connor's angry, but he'll come around. He hates me. He hates the situation. There's a difference. I destroyed their lives to improve them. What kind of mother does that? A human one who made a terrible mistake." Denise started crying. "I'd do it all again, you know. That's the worst part. If I could go back to that moment when Greg suggested it, knowing everything that would happen, the guilt, the fear, the exposure, the prison, I'd still say yes. Because for those 8 years, my kids had food and braces and college. They had stability, and I can't regret that, even though I should. Maybe that's what makes it so tragic. There's no clear villain here, just people trying to survive who made catastrophic choices. Do you hate us for lying to you, for putting you in that position? I don't know what I feel anymore. Some days I'm angry, some days I understand. Most days, I'm just sad that it came to this." A year after the arrests, I was trying to rebuild my life. New job, new apartment, minimal contact with my fractured family. I'd started dating someone, Emma, who knew the whole story and somehow didn't run away. "Your family sounds exhausting," she said after I explained everything. That's putting it mildly. But I get it. They weren't evil people, just desperate people who made terrible choices. That's the most accurate summary I've ever heard. Things were stable until I got a call from Riley. "Nate, Connor tried to kill himself." My world stopped. "What?" "He took pills. I found him in time. He's at the hospital. They're monitoring him. But Nate, he left a note. It's bad." I drove to the hospital immediately. Riley was in the waiting room, her eyes red from crying. "What happened?" "The student loans, the harassment online, losing everything. It broke him. He said in the note that he couldn't live with being the insurance fraud kid anymore. That everywhere he goes, people recognize him from the news. He can't get a job, can't make friends, can't move on." "Can I see him?" Not yet. They're still evaluating him. We sat in silence for a while. Then Riley said, "This is my fault." "No, it's not. I should have seen the signs. He's been getting quieter, more withdrawn. I thought he just needed time. I didn't realize he was planning this." "Riley, you're 21 years old, working full-time while taking classes part-time, living in a crappy apartment because your parents are in prison. You're barely holding yourself together. You can't be responsible for Connor, too." "He's my brother. If I can't protect him, what's the point?" Connor was released 3 days later to a psychiatric facility for evaluation. When he was finally stable enough for visitors, I went to see him. He looked hollow, empty. "Hey, Connor. Hey. You scared the hell out of everyone. I'm sorry. I couldn't do it anymore, you know? Everywhere I go, someone recognizes me. Oh, you're that kid whose family faked to death for insurance money. I can't escape it. I can't move forward. I'm drowning in debt I'll never pay off. And for what? A few years of comfort? It wasn't worth it. Your parents thought they were helping. They were helping themselves feel less guilty about being failures. If Dad had just stuck around, filed for bankruptcy, gotten a normal job, we would have been fine. Poor, but fine. Instead, he took the coward's way out and left me to deal with the consequences. He didn't mean for it to end like this. Doesn't matter what he meant. This is what happened. And now I'm the one living with it, while he sits in a comfortable minimum security prison with 3 meals a day and no student loans. I didn't know what to say. He was right. The people who'd orchestrated the fraud were in prison, but Connor and Riley were the ones paying the real price. They hadn't asked for any of this. They'd just been kids trying to survive, and their parents' gift had destroyed their lives. "Have you talked to your dad?" "No, and I don't want to. What's he gonna say? Sorry I ruined your life for insurance money? It doesn't help." "Maybe it would help to tell him how angry you are. Get it all out." Connor looked at me with dead eyes. "Nothing helps, Nate. Nothing fixes this. The only thing that would help is if none of this ever happened. And since we can't go back in time, I'm just stuck being the kid whose family committed fraud. Forever." After leaving Connor, I called Dad at the prison. I told him what happened. Dad broke down, full body-shaking sobs over the phone. Oh God, what have I done?" "Connor needs to hear from you. He needs to know you understand how much this hurt him." "He won't take my calls. He's blocked me on everything." "Then write him a letter. Tell him everything you just told me." Dad did. He wrote Connor a 10-page letter, taking full responsibility, apologizing for everything, acknowledging that his attempt to help had actually destroyed Connor's life. He sent it to the psychiatric facility. Connor never responded. Meanwhile, the media circus continued. True crime podcasts covered the case. YouTube videos analyzed every detail. People on social media debated whether Dad and Greg were victims of circumstance or calculating criminals. I was contacted by 3 different production companies wanting to make a documentary. I declined all of them. This wasn't entertainment. This was my family's destruction. Emma suggested I write about it, not for publication, but for myself, to process everything. So I did. I started a journal documenting everything from the moment I saw Greg at that gas station to now. The moral dilemmas, the family fractures, the impossible choices. Writing became therapeutic. Through therapy and writing, I came to some realizations. 1, my family committed a serious crime, full stop. They deserved legal consequences. 2, they'd also been desperate people making terrible choices in an impossible situation. That didn't excuse the fraud, but it explained it. 3, the punishment, both legal and social, far exceeded the crime. They'd taken $800,000 from a massive corporation that didn't blink at the loss, but they'd lost everything: freedom, reputation, family, future. 4, the real victims were Connor and Riley, who'd done nothing wrong but were paying the highest price. And 5, there were no heroes in this story, just humans making catastrophically bad decisions and living with the fallout. 2 years into everyone's sentences, Mom finally agreed to meet me for coffee. It was our first real conversation since everything exploded. "How are you?" I asked. "Surviving. I got a job at a different hospital, moved to a new apartment. I'm rebuilding." "Have you talked to Dad?" "Once. He called on what would have been our anniversary. I listened for 5 minutes, then hung up. I'm not ready." "Will you ever be ready?" "I don't know. Maybe after he's out. Maybe never. He lied to me for 8 years, Nate. Made me an unwitting accomplice. Everyone assumes I knew. I've lost friends over this. People think I was in on it." "The people that matter know you weren't. Do they? Or do they just say that to be nice?" She stirred her coffee. "How are Connor and Riley?" "Riley's doing better. Connor's still struggling." Mom's eyes filled with tears. Those poor kids. They didn't deserve any of this. No, they didn't.
And you? How are you handling all of this? Therapy. Lots of therapy. And I'm writing about it, trying to make sense of it all. Have you made sense of it? Not really. I think that's the point. Some things just don't make sense. They're just tragic.
3 years into the sentences, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Is this Nathaniel Hayes? Yes, who's calling? My name is Angela Morrison. I'm a claims investigator for Pacific Life Insurance. I'd like to ask you some questions about the Hayes insurance fraud case. My stomach dropped. I already gave a statement to the police 3 years ago. I understand, but we're conducting an independent civil investigation. The criminal case is closed, but we're still pursuing restitution. I'd like to talk about what you knew and when you knew it. I didn't know anything until I accidentally ran into my uncle. I never participated in the fraud. But you knew for several weeks before the investigation began, correct? And you didn't report it. I was trying to figure out what to do. It's not illegal to not report a crime. No, but it does make you a witness, and we need to understand the full scope of who knew what and when. Can we meet? I contacted a lawyer immediately. She advised me to cooperate fully, but to be careful about what I said. The meeting with Angela Morrison was tense. She asked detailed questions about every conversation I'd had with Greg, Dad, Denise, Connor, and Riley after I discovered Greg was alive. She wanted timelines, exact quotes, details about who else knew. Why does this matter? I finally asked. Everyone involved has already been sentenced. Because the insurance company is pursuing additional civil penalties. We believe more people knew about the fraud than testified. Extended family members, friends, possibly business associates. You're looking for more people to sue. We're looking to recover our losses and ensure everyone who profited from this fraud faces consequences. Connor and Riley didn't profit. They lost everything. They benefited from fraud proceeds for 8 years. That makes them liable, regardless of their age at the time. They were children when this started. You can't seriously be going after them. Mr. Hayes, $800,000 is a significant loss. We have a responsibility to our shareholders to pursue every avenue of recovery. I left that meeting furious. The insurance company wasn't satisfied with prison sentences and seized assets. They wanted blood. I called Connor and Riley to warn them. Connor had finally stabilized after his suicide attempt and was working as a mechanic. Riley had graduated college, took her 6 years instead of 4, but she'd done it, and was working as a junior engineer. They're coming after you, I told Riley, the insurance company. They're going to sue you and Connor for civil damages. For what? We don't have anything. They already took everything. Future wages. They can garnish your paychecks for years. Riley was silent. Then, so I spent 6 years struggling through college, finally got my degree, and now they're going to take a chunk of every paycheck for the rest of my life? That's what the investigator implied. This is never going to end, is it? We're going to be paying for our parents' choices forever? She was right. The fraud had stolen not just 8 years of their lives, but potentially decades of their financial future. The civil suit was filed 3 months later. Pacific Life Insurance versus Connor Hayes and Riley Hayes, seeking $400,000 in damages plus interest, half the original payout, claiming they'd been beneficiaries of fraud proceeds. Connor and Riley couldn't afford lawyers. They represented themselves, standing in front of a judge trying to explain that they'd been children, that they hadn't known about the fraud initially, that they'd already lost everything. The judge was unsympathetic. You benefited from fraud proceeds. The law is clear. You're liable. He ruled in favor of the insurance company. 20% wage garnishment for both Connor and Riley until the debt plus interest was paid off. With interest, it would take approximately 35 years. Connor was 26. He'd be paying for his parents' fraud until he was 61 years old. Riley was 23. She'd be paying until she was 58. After the verdict, Riley called me, sobbing. I'll never be able to buy a house, never be able to save for retirement. Any kids I have will grow up poor because 20% of my paycheck goes to an insurance company. My parents tried to give me a future, and instead, they stole it. Can you appeal? With what money? We can barely afford food. Mom's still in prison. Dad won't be out for another 5 years. We're on our own. I felt helpless. What can I do? Nothing. There's nothing anyone can do. This is just our life now. That night, I wrote an article. I titled it, The Real Cost of Insurance Fraud, How One Family's Crime Destroyed the Next Generation. I detailed Connor and Riley's situation, how they'd been children when the fraud occurred, how they'd lost everything when it was exposed, and how they were now being forced to pay for their parents' choices for the next 3 decades. I explained how the people actually responsible were in prison, while the innocent kids were the ones truly paying the price. I submitted it to a major newspaper. They published it the next week. The response was explosive. Thousands of people shared the article, some sympathetic. These kids are victims, not criminals. Others harsh. They benefited from stolen money. They should pay it back. A crowdfunding campaign started. Help Connor and Riley Hayes. People donated. In 3 weeks, it raised $75,000. Pacific Life Insurance sent a cease and desist letter, claiming the crowdfunding campaign was an attempt to circumvent the court ruling. Lawyers got involved. Eventually, a compromise was reached. The $75,000 would be applied to the debt, and Connor and Riley's wage garnishment would be reduced to 10% instead of 20%. It wasn't freedom, but it was something. Through all of this, I maintained my relationship with both halves of my fractured family. I visited Dad in prison regularly. I checked in on Mom, though she still refused to talk about Dad. I met with Connor and Riley monthly, trying to be the stable presence they needed. 4 years into the sentence, Greg was released early for good behavior. He'd served 8 years of his 15-year sentence. He moved back to Oregon, registered as a felon, and started construction again, this time legally. Connor agreed to see him. Their reunion was tense. "I'm sorry," Greg said immediately, "for everything. I thought I was helping, and I destroyed your life instead." "Yeah, you did." "I know saying sorry doesn't fix anything. I know I can't undo the damage, but I want you to know that everything I did because I loved you and Riley. I just loved you badly." Connor stared at his father. "I'm going to forgive you," Connor repeated, "but we're not okay. We might never be okay. This is me trying to move forward, not me saying what you did was acceptable." "I understand." It was the first step towards healing. Not full healing, that might never come, but at least movement in the right direction.
5 years after I saw Greg at that gas station, Dad was released from prison. He'd served 6 years of his 8-year sentence with good behavior and parole. Mom didn't attend his release. They were officially divorced now, and she'd started seeing someone new. She'd rebuilt her life completely separate from the Hayes family drama. I picked Dad up from the prison. He looked older, grayer, diminished. The confident man I'd known was gone, replaced by someone humbled by consequences. "Thanks for coming," he said as we drove away. "Where are you going to stay?" "Halfway house for now. Then I'll figure it out. I can't work in finance anymore. Felony conviction. I'll probably do manual labor or something." "Greg's in construction. He could probably get you a job." "How is he?" "Alive, sober, trying to rebuild a relationship with Connor and Riley." "How's that going?" "Slowly. Riley forgave him faster. Connor's still working through it." We drove in silence for a while. Then Dad asked the question I'd been expecting. "How's your mother?" "Good. She's seeing someone. She's happy." Dad nodded, pain flashing across his face. "Good. She deserves to be happy." "Do you regret it? The whole thing?" Dad was quiet for a long time. "I regret the lying. I regret the pain it caused everyone, especially your mother and Connor and Riley. I regret that I lost my marriage, my career, 6 years of my life. But I don't regret that Greg is alive. He would have killed himself if we hadn't done this. So the outcome is terrible. The method was criminal, but the alternative was worse. So I don't know how to feel anymore." "That's the most honest thing you've ever said to me." Over the next year, Dad slowly reintegrated into society. He got a job working construction with Greg. They were brothers again, bonded by shared consequences. They rented a small apartment together, 2 middle-aged ex-cons trying to rebuild lives they'd destroyed. Denise was released a year after Dad. She'd served 4 years of her 5-year sentence. She moved into a small apartment, got a job as a cashier, and tried to reconnect with Connor and Riley. The kids were civil, but distant. Too much damage had been done. As for me, I finally finished writing my account of everything. Not for publication, just for myself. A record of how one terrible decision cascaded into years of consequences, destroying a family in the process. Through therapy, I'd come to accept some hard truths. 1, my family wasn't evil, but they'd done an evil thing. Both statements could be true simultaneously. 2, love doesn't excuse crime. Dad and Greg and Denise had loved their family, but they'd still committed fraud. Good intentions don't negate bad actions. 3, the justice system had punished the adults, but the real victims, Connor and Riley, were paying the longest sentence. 4, forgiveness wasn't about excusing what happened, it was about choosing to move forward despite what happened. And 5, family didn't mean pretending everything was okay. It meant being honest about how broken things were and deciding whether to try to rebuild.
7 years after that day at the gas station, I stood at Connor's wedding. He'd met someone who loved him despite his past, despite the garnished wages, despite the insurance fraud that would follow him forever. Riley was maid of honor. Greg and Denise sat in the back, grateful to be invited at all. Dad sat alone on one side. Mom sat with her new husband on the other side. We were a fractured family, pieces that didn't quite fit together anymore, but we were all there, trying. During the reception, Connor pulled me aside. "Thank you." "For what?" "For not reporting us back when you found Dad, for giving us time to turn ourselves in on our terms, for staying neutral when everyone else chose sides, for writing that article that got our garnishment reduced, for just being there." "I didn't do anything." "You did more than you know. You were the one person who didn't lie to me, didn't make excuses, didn't try to minimize what happened. You just acknowledged it was terrible and stayed anyway. That meant everything." I hugged him, this cousin who'd become my brother through circumstances, and felt something like hope. After the wedding, I drove home thinking about everything that had happened. The discovery, the moral dilemma, the arrests, the trials, the consequences that were still playing out and would continue to play out for decades. There was no neat ending. Greg and Dad were ex-cons, working construction, rebuilding trust one day at a time. Denise was alone in a small apartment, estranged from the kids she'd tried to save. Connor and Riley were paying for their parents' choices until they were almost retirement age. If that's not a victim, I don't know what is. 7 years after that day at the gas station, I opened my laptop and added one final entry to the manuscript I'd been writing for 7 years. People always want to know if I'd do anything differently. If I could go back to that gas station in Arizona, would I look away, pretend I didn't recognize Greg, drive past and let the lie continue? I don't know, because here's what I've learned. There was no right choice. Reporting them would have destroyed the family. Staying silent would have made me complicit. Confronting them gave them the chance to turn themselves in on their terms, but someone else reported them anyway, so even my choice didn't matter. The truth is, this was always going to end badly. You can't build a life on insurance fraud and expect it to last forever. The lie was always going to collapse. I just happened to be there when it started to crumble. My family committed a serious crime. They deserved legal consequences, but they were also desperate people making terrible choices in an impossible situation. Both things are true. The justice system punished them, society shamed them, they lost everything: freedom, reputation, family, future. Was that justice? I genuinely don't know. What I do know is this: crime has victims. In this case, the insurance company lost money they'll never miss, but Connor and Riley, they lost their entire futures. They'll be paying for choices they didn't make until they're almost retirement age. If that's not a victim, I don't know what is. 7 years later, I'm still processing it all, still trying to figure out how to love a family that did something unforgivable, still trying to reconcile the father who raised me with the criminal who lied to everyone. There's no neat moral to this story, no clear lesson about right and wrong, just a messy, complicated truth. People are capable of tremendous love and terrible choices, sometimes simultaneously. My uncle faked his death for insurance money. My entire family helped him do it. And somehow, we're all still here, trying to figure out how to be a family again. Maybe that's the real story. Not the crime, not the consequences, but what comes after. How you rebuild from wreckage. How you forgive the unforgivable. How you move forward when there's no clear path. I don't have answers, just questions, and the stubborn refusal to completely give up on people I love, even when they've done horrible things. Maybe that's enough. I saved the document and closed my laptop. Tomorrow, I'm having dinner with Dad and Greg. Next week, I'm helping Riley move into a new apartment. The month after, Mom had invited me to a barbecue with her new family, and I accepted. Life was moving forward, messy and imperfect and nothing like I had imagined, but it was moving. And maybe eventually, that would feel like enough.
Looking back, I realized there were no heroes in this story, just people trying to survive who made catastrophic choices and then had to live with them. My family wasn't unique. Desperation makes people do desperate things. But the consequences, those were very real and very permanent. Greg got 8 years of hiding, then prison, and now a life as a registered felon. Dad lost his marriage, his career, and 6 years of freedom. Denise lost everything she'd tried to protect. Connor and Riley lost their futures to wage garnishments that will follow them for decades. And me? I lost the comfortable illusion that my family was who I thought they were. But I also gained something, the understanding that love and crime can coexist, that people can do terrible things for understandable reasons, that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and family doesn't mean pretending everything's okay. 7 years later, we're all still standing, broken, fractured, but standing, and sometimes that's all you can ask for. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to Reddit Family Fallout. We share real stories about family secrets, betrayal, and the complicated process of healing when everything falls apart. Drop a comment below. What would you have done if you found your dead uncle alive? Would you report your family for fraud or stay silent to protect them? Thanks for watching, and remember, the line between right and wrong isn't always as clear as we'd like it to be. Sometimes you just have to make the best choice you can with impossible options. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.